11, so we'll make sure that that's all adequate with the building official. But yeah, he may have to jockey that around slightly.
In other words, what we're seeing here is, without that easement, he's landlocked.
No, he has an easement.
Huh?
He has an easement.
Yeah, but he has the easement, but if he didn't have the easement, there's no way he could have access to that land.
Yep, that's what he's got for access, that's his legal access.
So that'd be asking for a double easement. Or
Well,
double-
no, the easement doesn't change at all. It would just be a shared driveway is the situation that you'd be, end up with, is a shared driveway to two houses. But at that point, then we're assuming, see, that there won't be a street there.
In other words, to get to that second property, if you had two lots there, they'd have to go across the property, the other person's land then.
Yes, we would have to grant an easement across the front of the first lot, yes.
For your other son.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that is correct. And that's the easement, I think that Mr. Stockton was talking about, what we're willing to give the city, that 33 feet right now, which you probably are not gonna have any need for, but at least it would be there. So that easement would be available to both property owners and to the city if they change their mind and decide to put a street in there someday.
Yeah, he's willing to grant it all the way across, if that's what the city would like. And, you know, it is easier to vacate it than it is to ask him later to add some, so. But like I said, with Ms. Troy, she has no interest in splitting, nor would probably any future owner there. And you can see where her little pond is on the corner of her lot, right at the curve on Gypsy Valley. Any public street that were to come east-west across there would have to almost, fill in that pond area to meet Gypsy Valley at a 90-degree angle, so that's another reason why access there is tough.
Ms. Stockman, will you clarify what the width of a road right-of-way would be?
Oh,
if
a
it
full
was that
width is
one?
66, so
That's what I
33
thought.
is half, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought, okay.
Right, so he would be, yeah, he's offering 33 as half of a road, right?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mayor.
Well, Liz, you're talking about 33 all the way across the north edge of that 20-acre parcel?
Yes, he's willing to do that, if that would ease the city's mind as far as access. You know, if we're sort of in limbo, and we don't know, of course, what the Johnsons wanna do, but on the one hand, but really all he really needs to provide is access across the first lot to get to the second lot, if we're not anticipating any street going through there.
If the Johnsons were to develop, we would expect those lots to go out to a road plan through the Johnsons and not back out to that four corner.
Right, exactly.
So on the easement there, right now, there's a freshwater forested shrub wetland on the east and emergent wetland, a large section on the west where that easement would go right through that wetland.
Yes, the easement
To those wetlands, I
would
guess.
be right through those, at this time, if you wanted it to be. Otherwise, you could end it at the end of the first lot, just enough to get to the second lot. But, Yeah, I mean, you could address, well, at the time the street were built, if it ever happened, you know, there would be some mitigation required there, you know, is the assumption.
I think if that were developed, you'd certainly want to go out to a newly developed road and stay away from that corner.
Exactly, you don't want a whole subdivision coming out to that corner, because even if there were two outlets, let's say, from a subdivision on the Johnson property, and one outlet was on this corner and one was further north, you know, people naturally going to the south and east would come south, and so then you'd have a ton of traffic, going by these properties at a dangerous location,
Because the properties are one thing, the dangerous location is critical as well.
right?
Okay, better hurry up, your candidates for commission, you're gonna lose interest here.
What, the thing is, he's not landlocked, so he can put one house in there. And what he's asking for is a second house on that same easement he's got.
Right.
And
If he had options, well, yeah, you know, I guess there are no options right now, other than to come in across the easement. The only other scenario would be like Exhibit J, where he would be dependent upon when the Johnsons develop in order to even get a cul-de-sac back there. And that doesn't make a lot of sense, as you can see in Exhibit J, because the street abuts Johnson's existing house there.
Yeah, I don't know why you would bring that cul-de-sac
Yeah,
down,
so-
if there was nothing else.
Right. So, you know, normally I wouldn't be promoting, you know, subdivision on an easement like that without public street frontage, because that's just, it goes against the ordinance that we adopted, but the hardship here is very clear to me. Just based on, you know, environmental factors of the wetlands or just the configuration of the land. You know, it shouldn't have been accessed by an easement to begin with, but the fact of the matter is, it's like that, so now we have to deal with it.
And legally, it is a hardship, even though he can put a house in there.
Well, I guess, yeah, I mean, it's up to you, basically, you have to weigh, yes, he can use the property. It's not the highest and best use, but yes, he can put a house there. But I don't, you know, like I said, it's not any fault of his. He's willing to provide right away or whatever, but it still doesn't get him anywhere at this point. Yes, you could tell him to wait, see what happens in the future, but I'm not sure that that's really feasible either, just from what I've seen. You know, he's kind of stuck down there in that corner. And there's no need to put a road through for Ms. Troy or for the Murdesdorfs.
The thing I'm concerned about is the legality of it.
Well, no, it's legal. What's not, what don't you think is legal about it?
Well, I'm thinking about the hardship is they have access to the property. And legally, that's all you have to have is access to the property, right?
Well, they have access right now
Yes, they
for
have
one
it.
house, right,
For one house, yes.
right.
Does that mean we have to give them access for two lots, even though it's,
Do you have to? No. Are you weighing this against,
No,
I guess you have to kind of weigh the pros and the cons and decide, is it fair?
well, I'm
Or-
looking at the legal aspect, that's what I'm looking at.
It's legal. The legality doesn't need to come into play right now because the easement is there.
Yes,
It can be shared by two people.
okay.
They will have to have a shared driveway agreement to address the maintenance and the usage of it.
So there's no question about it, that it's legal, and we should go ahead and let it go through.
Well, the driveway, the access would be legal that way. Even though it's not a public street, it's still a legal easement access. That's what you're asking.
That's what I'm
yeah.
asking, yes.
Yes.
Was that part of the Holt's place, or was that part of Nathan's place?
I'm not sure what that was.
I don't know either.
You know what I'm talking
You know
about?
who you bought it?
What,
Who'd you
May,
buy it from?
where the back of the May Estate. Yeah, well,
Okay.
I think that must have come off of, see, wasn't that guy's name Rippentrop or something like that, that originally had that? See, that was Nathan's stepdad, I think.
Could be, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
I know my house was where Nathan was a kid. His mom lived there.
Yep,
And they must have divided out and just left her that little.
Oh,
because
okay.
that lot
Yeah.
should not have been approved the way it was originally without an access. That should have been took care of years ago, really. But see,
Yeah.
that might have been before we had anything in writing that,
Right. Well,
because,
it wasn't that long ago that you did allow, 33 feet. So,
then that might be what they went on because I know there's several roads around the people that just have access with 33 feet.
well, and this is a good example of the problems that it can create.
Chairman,
Yes.
I'm gonna speak some opinions, and I'm sure we all have some. After reviewing everything and seeing everything, I'm with the neighbors that they probably don't want more than one house back there. It is a dangerous corner, it is rough, it is a very fun curvy road. And yes, the easement is part of their ownership and all that stuff. So I don't know, I don't think that it's something that we have to grant. And us as a city, taking the 33 feet is gonna do no good for us, because I don't know that it's actually gonna be able to go anywhere. The land does change a lot of elevations. The only way it would do it is if there's a huge sale of land in the area for development.
I'd like to add to that a little bit. It seems like a lot of stuff on a small area of land. I mean, that's actually available. You have your 2 septic sites, you have the pole barn that's already there. If you add in that driveway, you put the driveway off, I mean, how much space do you,
Yeah, wetlands
right,
already
how much
exist on
space
the
do you
site.
even have for each house?
Well, he just has to meet our buildability requirements. So, he's gotta prove that he has 1 acre of upland and,
I mean, has it all been laid out?
yeah, there's
So
room
it's all
there.
there.
There's room there, yeah. he's had soil testing done, and we still need to figure what the lowest floor elevation would be, but
Seems like with all the buildings, it would just look more like a combine than a lot of Nowthen property. Just my opinion.
well, yeah, even though they'd both be a little under, well, one would be 10 acres, so it can accommodate the shed, and then the other would be just under that.
But everything would be up in this area up here.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
Yeah, so, but he still has to have, 1 acre of upland, and it's gotta be, the modeled soils have to be at a certain level, and he's gotta meet all the other requirements.
Okay, anybody wanna make a motion on this?
I had one question for Liz.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we allow, shared driveways in the recent past for other residents?
How recent?
Probably a couple years.
Maybe 3 or more?
I don't think so, probably some more recent than
Yeah, I
that.
do remember one, and I can't think of the name. But, and that's why they have to go through the special permit process, so there can be a discussion and share, comments by the neighbors.
Well, we have to make a decision here, one way or the other. Vote it up and down, up or down. I know we're all feeling the same thing.
I'll make a motion if no one wants to step up. I'll be the bad person. My motion is to deny the lot split for this parcel of land and to keep everything as it is.
Okay, Commissioner Pearl made the motion. Do we have a second to this motion? I'll second it. Now we'll open it for discussion. Any discussion? We pretty well discussed everything. Okay, I'm gonna call for the vote. All in favor of it, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. This will go to the city council, they make the final decision.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you once again for your time and your consideration. I really appreciate it.
And thank you.
I wish we had different results, but I still appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you.
And thank you.
Liz, thank you very much.
You are welcome, have a good night.
I hope the next one's faster. Okay, we'll open the next public hearing. And the public hearing is a request for an internal use permit to allow a home extended business at 9300 195th Avenue, Northwest, and the pin is 30-33-25-24-007. And are the applicants here?
Yes, Mr.
Okay,
Bistido's
would you
here.
come up?
This is Chuck Bistido. He just bought the property from the Sheldons.
Okay. First of all, before we ask you any questions, we'll let the Stockman, our planner, get the information.
Sure, I'll give you a quick rundown here. So Mr. Bistido just bought the 5 acres. He has a cement contracting company. He would like to bring some equipment home. He also has another off-site facility, and a lot of his equipment's left at the job sites. There are 2 large barns on the property. He would like to use the southerly barn for the work items, and is willing to put up a fence around an area between the 2 sheds for some outdoor storage, or maybe for some of the larger things that aren't gonna fit in the barn. He is also talking about possibly an addition to one of the barns in the future. There's 2 existing driveway access already onto 195th. So he could not add another driveway, but he could create some internal circulation to make it easier to get his trucks and trailers in and out of there. So, like I said, he's very willing to put the fencing up, cedar fence between the 2 structures. And he's listed on the letter of intent the equipment that he has, and also he listed a couple items that he plans to acquire or would like to acquire in the future. So I did chat with him about, allowing a little bit of growth or planning for the future, so he doesn't have to come back before you real soon. So with that, I think I will let Mr. Bistido share anything that he wants to add. The name of the company is CMB Concrete. And I forget, where did you come from? Where did you?
St. Michael.
St. Michael, okay.
Okay, wanna add something to that?
So yeah, I do have another shop yet right now that I'm renting. I do have a lot of the equipment at my house right now, cause I've been redoing the yard. It's been, like, the driveway's been neglected for years, it's pretty much mud. So I hauled in a couple hundred yards of gravel, been grading, fixing drainage problems. So I do have excavator and stuff at my house right now. I'm trying to have almost all my equipment at my house, cause I'm paying roughly 15 to 20,000 a year in rent. Usually my equipment's always on site, like my big excavators are always, either I'm digging basements or they're on a larger construction site. They come to my house, they fit in my shop, I can service them inside the shop. I can lay the booms down on the other side of the building, you can see the booms stick up. So everything will fit inside the building, and not everything will be there at once. If I had everything at my house at once, it wouldn't fit inside. So my goal is to build another building. There is 3 outbuildings on my land. There's like a 16 by 16 little loafing shed. So if I demo that, I think I was allowed another 3,300 square feet of outbuilding yet.
Yeah, it was like
33 or 36.
32 or something, yeah.
Yep.
You had some room there to grow a little.
So basically, leave in the morning, come home at night, no deliveries. Noise is minimal. Like my brand new excavator puts out less decibels than a 1-ton diesel pickup at full throttle, so. Machines are quiet. I got the switches for the backup beepers, so you don't hear any beepers on the trucks or anything. Other than that, it's newer equipment. It's not like you're gonna look at a junkyard, so.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna ask the clerk to verify the legal publications, mailings, and postings, everything completed, okay? Now, is there anybody in the public that wants to make a comment about what he's wanting to do here? Yes, come up and give your name and address. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
My
name is Jeremiah Anderson. This is my wife Melanie Anderson. We reside at 19502 Eaton Street Northwest, just across from this property. We'd like to speak tonight and basically just to gather some more information. We're unsure of this process and how long this permit would be issued for. And so we're basically just on a information gathering here. And I apologize, but I would really like this process to take as long as it needs to this evening. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to speak. So if there's, we have a couple questions here that we'd like to get answered, and hopefully this is the appropriate time to ask those things. In the last couple weeks, we have observed quite a bit of vehicles, as we should, from them taking ownership of property. There has been a lot of heavy equipment, as he was mentioning. Unfortunately, it's not from the wonderful horses that they had prior at the property. So these changes are natural for us to not be as positive, but we just basically like to know what things about this property are going to be changing. And I like those comments about those things. So.
Couple concerns, I think, or things that I would like addressed as well is, like the aspect of the increased traffic and all, with coming and going, more of the heavy equipment being on the property, the equipment trucks that are bringing this heavy equipment to and from. We're a small neighborhood, we have one in, one out, a U-shaped development. And so a lot of increased traffic would be on this coming and going versus just our natural neighborhood traffic that would be coming, carrying this heavy equipment. Again, we're wondering too, would any customers be coming to this home? I know he did mention no deliveries, and so that was nice to hear. The concern as well, I would feel, would be with the increased build on this property. There's a home already in 2 large outbuildings, building a 3rd large outbuilding. You know, are we keeping that residential feel? Are we looking into more of a business or a kind of industrial type look or area to this area? Is there a guarantee with the interim use permit that all of the equipment will be stored indoors? Or do we start to see this resignated on the property? Also concerns then would be, would there be any dumping of concrete material that we would be visualizing on the property as well? Or things that might be settling into there as a garbage disposal place? How much equipment would be run on the property itself, or is it more of a bring to and leave from, like he said? And then the general operation hours, are we looking at this nights, weekends? Are we looking at this just certain business hours that we can expect this heavier increase of traffic and increase in the equipment coming and going? Are there any large type of concrete crushing type equipment going to be on this property? Kind of noise levels in general is a concern. And then how many employees do we expect to be coming and going daily? So we know the generalized traffic that would be in the area on a typical day-to-day basis for that. You know, we have no problem with home business across from us. There are a lot of home businesses in the area, and we definitely appreciate that and look forward to contributing to that and helping people do that as well. We just have some concerns with making sure that this maintains the neighborhood that it should be in the Nowthen development.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
to address some of that. Jeremiah, your question as to whether the appropriate to ask those questions, that is the point of a public hearing. So the questions you had are very specific and germane to the process here. The reason that letters go out to the surrounding neighbors is so you can bring this up now rather than say, boy, I wish I would have said something before. Because this is the time, and this is what the commission, should they decide to recommend an interim use permit for this business, these are all the questions that you had, are all the things they should be addressing in the specific conditions of the business. It's growth, the expectations are put in place now, and any violation of that would cost Mr. Biscuito the interim use permit. That's why we do interim use rather than conditional use, so that if there are violations, that it's it's expanded beyond what's reasonable for a residential area, should be in a commercial park. The opportunity the city has is to come back and say, you're not meeting the conditions any longer that the residents were comfortable with originally, and therefore it is to change. So the interim use permit does allow the city much more leeway to correct things if they get out of hand.
Is it a trial period, is there a specific?
No, it's interim use period. There can be a timeline put on it, but basically the conditions that the commission recommends and the council approves are the restrictions. If those conditions aren't met, that's a violation and they can pull the permit. So it's not a guaranteed time, it's adherence to the conditions. That's why Planner Stockman said, if you're gonna do something, plan for whatever's reasonable growth rather than what you're doing right now. Mr. Bisto would say, if this is what I'm going to be in a couple of years, plan for that now, so the residents aren't surprised when it becomes that. The hours of operation, definitely critical to the recommendation by the commission. Is it, right now it's 6 to 9. You didn't say, is that 7 days a week? And what does that like? I have a concrete business near me. I know what that can be like with a large crew and diesel and trucks. I'm thankful they also have backup switches so that the beepers aren't going. But yeah, some of the businesses, the trucks are idling at 5 in the morning. So you want to know what those conditions are, and that's what the commission's responsibility, if they were to proceed, would be very specific in the conditions, so Mr. Bissett knows what he can do with his business, and the residents around can know what to expect. I know we do encourage that participation. This is the time to ask.
I know we started off a lot of questions, I guess.
And it's one of those things that it's always nice to put in writing, so that if you can get those types of questions, if you have an opportunity like this again, get those questions to the city, if you include part of the packet, that the commissioners can make sure they address all of this.
Mr. Chair? I could answer a couple more of those questions. So the dumping of concrete is actually considered, or the burying of concrete rubble is considered by the MPCA as a pollutant now. So unless he's just bringing, say, a dump truck or trailer home on his way and plans to discard it, the next morning or something like that, he wouldn't be allowed to have any sort of a pile, most likely in the residential area. And yeah, hours we will address. And as far as the employees, he's only allowed to have 2 full-time or 4 part-time employees on the site at any time. He did indicate to me that most of the time his employees are not coming to the property. They're just going to the work site and, yeah, they'll meet there. Once in a while, he said, but that is the general rule, 2 full-time or 4 part-time at any given time on the property. Yeah, noise-wise, he's addressed a couple of those things. I don't, just from talking to him, yeah, it didn't seem like he was, gonna be running equipment other than to just repair it or clean it on, not really, we can clarify that more when we get into the conditions. And, yeah, no customers coming to the property. And so when we evaluate traffic for a residential area such as yours, there's a standard that comes from the Traffic Institute, which is 10 vehicle trips per day. So that is for any single family home. So that would be, like if you left once and came back, that would be 2. So obviously some houses might exceed that if they have a lot of children, driving children. And other houses don't even begin to meet that 10 trips a day. So it is fairly, what's the word? It's a larger number than what you'd think, I guess is what I meant to say. But as long as he's on a paved road and that connects to other paved roads. Generally, the city's policy has been to allow the business as long as they're not, eating up the road unnecessarily. But if they're generally within the 10 trips a day, then, we haven't had any problems in the past, I guess, but.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mayor.
And Liz, the other question he had was the buildings, and
Oh, right, yes.
so the buildings are really regulated by the lot size, so it's not really the businesses. Anybody within a certain lot size can have a certain number of buildings, certain square footage of buildings. So he wouldn't be granted anything beyond what you would be able to have on 5 acres as well. It's just that it's more noticeable when you've got commercial business running out of that. But if it were horse buildings, he'd be allowed the same number of buildings, the same square footage, as if he was running a horse business or recreational horse boarding of his own, as he would a commercial property. So there's no excess granted for that because it's commercial. And on 5 acres, that is what currently lives.
Well, if he's slightly over 5, it jumps up to 6,400 if he's at, which I think he is, so it'd be 6,400 and 3 buildings. Total of 3, so that's what he was saying, is he's got 2 large ones and 1 smaller shed that he could demo if he wanted to, or he could add on to one of the larger sheds. I thought I referenced, one of the existing buildings is 1,800 square feet and the other one is about 1,792, I believe is what he stated.
You've got it at 3592 existing right now.
So he has, yeah,
It's on your background front page. 5.53 acres, 3,592 square feet of accessory buildings.
so he does have a little, room to add on or to create a 3rd one. But the outdoor storage really does have to be screened either by fencing or tree placement. So the commission can recommend, what they feel is appropriate there too. He suggested we kinda talked about a cedar fence, and using the existing buildings sort of as an enclosure too, but we'll see. I don't know what their opinion is yet. So, thank you for coming, it's very helpful.
Are there any others in the audience who want to speak to this? If not, she has a letter to read to this.
This gentleman stopped into the office, he wasn't able to make the meeting, so he asked that this be read. David Tolleson, 19533 Boss Street, Northwest. His concerns regarding a concrete business in a residential neighborhood. Does the use fit in with the existing neighborhood? A quiet neighborhood on a horseshoe drive will now have construction trucks pulling equipment in and out potentially any hours of the day with higher use during the summer months. Also potential customers, strangers coming and going. A, what about the noise? Will it still be quiet? Some people have to sleep during the day. B, safety. Will it still be safe for children to ride bikes and play with construction trucks, and to play with construction trucks and strangers coming and going in the neighborhood? And C, what impact will having a concrete business in the neighborhood have on property and market value? As the City Planning and Zoning Commission debates granting the permit, consider not all home businesses are suited for residential operation. Some are best placed in an industrial park. Would you want this business moving in next to you?
Okay, has anybody on the committee got any questions they'd like to ask the applicant? If not, I'll go back to the public end. If there's anybody wants to have any public input into this, this is their opportunity to speak up.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a couple of questions for the applicant. After reviewing everything, there's just a couple of things. Wondering if the hours of operation is gonna be suitable for you, even in the summer months. We have noted here from 6 to 9, Monday through Friday, and 8 to 5 on a Saturday, and there's no hours of operation on a Sunday.
We don't work Sundays.
Okay, and 8 to 5 on a Saturday is gonna be sufficient, even in the summertime?
We never went over Saturday, me and Liz met.
Okay,
Like usually like a Saturday morning, if we're gonna pour, we usually got the equipment at the job, we just jump in a pickup.
okay.
It's just like driving a car out of the driveway.
Just ask because I'm knowledgeable in the construction industry, and 6 AM is probably a norm for concrete.
Yeah,
Okay. You've already addressed your employees. I wanted to also ask about if there's any actual material coming to your home, due to it being a concrete. Are you ever gonna be having pallets of stuff coming to the site from an existing project or piling up for the next project coming up?
no,
Okay, so you'll never have any materials?
no.
And then, obviously, we're in the slower kind of the months right now, with the time being a lot fewer hours of daylight. What is your plan for lighting your area so you can be moving about? Is it gonna interrupt with any of your neighbors? Do you have any plans for that?
If I'm gonna be doing anything, you know, I can just pull the truck and trailer right in the shop and just load it in the shop.
Okay,
So I ain't gonna be lighting nothing up, so,
let me know. Thought I'd ask.
yeah.
My husband likes lights, so.
Yeah, my concern is that, you know, I've been, you know, I'm new to the area. I went to Elk River School. I've been in this area quite a bit, at, like friends' houses like years ago, but, like my neighbor's a landscaper. I noticed, you know, there ain't no difference between him and me. I do concrete, I don't have landscape material or anything at my house. My material gets delivered by a ready mix truck. So,
One other question, I guess. You say screening for outdoor storage, and in this, it's described as the area between basically the two buildings. Have you discussed anything for alongside of the road to hide any kind of outdoor storage along, just parked
like a trailer.
trees? Yeah.
I can do trees. I guess my biggest concern is, you know, I'm gonna keep everything neat and organized. I don't know, no one else does it, you know, just by driving around in this town, but yeah, I'll do whatever's required.
Because the larger building is the one that you're actually gonna do more of your maintenance, and you said parking in?
Yeah.
When capable? In this picture that we have, it's an aerial. I'm asked, I guess, I don't know if that's a semi-truck that's in the driveway here, behind the house. I'm not sure what it is.
Well, that was
That's
from earlier, so that
previous.
would be
I've only
like,
been there a couple weeks.
Okay, all right, so,
Probably
oh,
be-
that could be a horse trailer then.
right, right.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to just get a perspective on size, sorry, so.
So when I bought the property, I was aware that, you know, it said right on the listing, business welcome. Before there was a cabinet shop ran out of there. So you could about imagine with the cabinet shop, deliveries every day, customers there every day, picking out their material, design. I ain't gonna have any deliveries
Yeah.
and no customers.
Are you removing any of the fencing? Are you leaving all the fencing there?
I'm removing it.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
gonna keep the outer perimeter. I'm gonna remove all of it because the drainage, like, I don't know how this development was built, but I look at surveys a lot, and I do excavating. And it's like, I don't know if the city goes by a grading site plan, but if they did, everything's not draining, right?
okay.
It should have been, our house should have been up 2 more courses. So I'm gonna be pretty much regrading everything next year.
Okay.
So everything drains correctly. Cause there's this puddles of water throughout the land.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you're gonna take down a lot of the horse fencing?
Yes.
Do you know if that east fence line is over the lot line?
That was
That was
That
discussed.
was a big argument when we were purchasing the house.
Okay. It looks like on this aerial, like it's encroaching
Mr.
on the
Chair,
neighbor's property.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yes, so Commissioner Wagner, that, if you remember, the Sheldons actually came in for the lot line reconfiguration to, and it was approved to combine, they actually purchased the triangle when they built on the lot from the developer. This development did have some issues, overall. What happened was, when they went to record this, the, you know, basically the neighbor wasn't able to make this happen, so it was a big to-do in trying to close on the lot and sell to the Vistados, and they ended up closing without the triangle. So they never recorded the lot line reconfiguration. So it is still the original lot, and the neighbor, you know, at this point basically said, well, whatever, just leave the fence. I mean, it was, the original owners understood the line to be where it was supposed to be, not where it is now, but I'm not sure what the Vistados plan to do, if anything, but I know that the Sheldons had some legal documents drawn up to say that, you know, make it clear that that was not included in the sale.
Okay.
So it was kind of a big runaround and caused everybody last minute headaches, didn't it?
The tax lien on the neighbors because of all that. So.
Yeah, it was a tough deal.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing, then we'll act upon it.
Let's kind of speak to getting this stuff straightened out to begin with, rather than a couple owners down the road.
Yeah.
I guess I'd like to make a comment about the aerial. If, it kind of speaks to what's been going on here years prior to you taking it on. I mean, look at all the stuff sitting out there. Neighboring houses have stuff sitting out there covered up. I personally would hate to see somebody come in and, you know, be told they can't do something that's everyone else has clearly been doing for years prior.
It's like I noticed, like, in other developments, there's storage containers, like shipping containers.
When I live in a neighborhood that has a person that drives trucks, and they keep everything in their big pole barns. I mean, we never see it, there's trees.
To me, I'd rather see a building than a shipping container sitting in there.
That's not legal, by the way.
Unless your mother-in-law is living in it or something like that, I don't know.
They make those tiny houses out of them.
Yeah.
Oh, don't say that word in this city.
We're doing that in St. Paul.
We've had the discussion.
Are you okay with the times and stuff she's got down here?
The Saturday one, not at 8 o'clock, would be earlier, I'd say 6 o'clock,
On Saturdays?
yeah.
Would you be going till 9 o'clock during the week?
No,
No.
Not even during the summer?
Can we shorten that up?
usually never, but,
Or could that be shortened up then?
well, what if there's one night I don't, you know? Depends if we have a breakdown or, you know. We had it happen already where, you know, a tire blew on the trailer, you know, on the side of the road.
Well, I mean, I think it's safe to assume too, not every morning at 6 o'clock are you leaving with equipment, and not every night at 9 o'clock are you bringing equipment home. I work in the construction industry as well, I know stuff gets dropped off. It stays there till the end of the job, it gets moved back to its original place, it gets dropped off again. So obviously, like, everyone's concerned, you know, you just bought a new house, your neighbors are concerned, but looks like you're all gonna be stuck together for a little while too, so everybody wants to be happy with the end result.
Mr. Chairman, I guess one of my questions regarding that lot line, I guess I was wondering if we did want, just because of noise or something, to have, add some trees around the perimeter. Whether it's, you know, on a lot line that faces the house, just to help dampen the noise from hitting the neighbors' homes.
That was where I was gonna go to next, was with some sort of a trees, at least along the roads.
Just because there's not anything there right now.
Yeah.
And granted, when there's horses, nobody seems to care, cause they love to see the horses, but not to just have to listen to the trucks, they're idle for 15 minutes before you leave in the morning.
Are you suggesting trees all the way around?
No, I wouldn't think so, but I would just think, some spot areas of trees, and maybe you, like where it says Easton Street Northwest, maybe you put a few on that curb there, so it just would, screen towards the houses across the street. And, and maybe kind of the same down to the other, 19480, just put a few down in front of that, just to break things up, so that not everybody's having to look at, what you do have going on there, just so you're giving some amount of screening to any neighbors, I guess. And it's just an idea.
At least one
I like
thing
it.
now,
If you're going to regrade and, that you put
yeah,
in.
it's like I'm gonna regrade everything and, it's like one thing when I first moved in, I never seen so many flies at one place in my life. I've been scraping all the horse manure up, trying to bury it, and it's like,
Yeah,
I think the neighbors would appreciate the flies.
Sell it, it's
Yeah.
good compost for gardens.
yeah. And I'm not talking anything extensive, whether it be 3 or 4 pine trees in each location, just to give some.
So if you did pine trees, so pine trees ain't fast growing, so what do you want?
Well,
Trees this big?
well,
You know.
and maybe you start out with them that they're 3 foot tall, they grow up pretty quick then from that point. Not starting with the saplings yet, because it does take about 10 years to grow that much, and then it's 10 years to grow the next 10 feet.
Well, there is a minimum,
Yeah,
so,
so if you got some that are, start out at 3 or 4, they grow up pretty quick.
And then, along with that is, I'd say they don't have to be like 10 feet apart either. They
No,
could be,
no,
they could be
no.
20,
No,
30
just
feet
something
apart.
to help break it up and
Yeah,
just,
just to distract. You do have
maybe
some
it's
trees on the
just-
south line currently.
right,
Yeah, it's right on the line, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, whether
And there's
it's,
like not much on that
It's
east
more like
line.
Buckthorn and,
That's kind of what I was getting at, yep.
it's,
brushy stuff,
box
yeah.
elder or whatever.
yeah.
It's junk tree.
Ms. Stockman?
Yes.
Where were you asking for the fence?
I was just gonna ask, is a cedar fence then appropriate between the buildings? And then some vegetation at spots along the perimeter? Because the ordinance does reference, we're supposed to block views from neighboring homes and from the public right of way, so that would make sense, and,
Just between the buildings?
if he encloses the area between the buildings, and, you should specify what can be outside. We have to be very clear on what can be outside, and
I
then.
thought he said most everything's gonna be inside.
Yes, that's what he said.
That's my intent.
Yep, so that's great if that's,
Would there be anything stored behind that fence then?
Trailers,
Trailers?
so it's just, 2
Equipment
box bed.
attachments.
Like my attachments, I already got in the lean-to.
Okay.
I do have some attachments sitting outside right now, cause I'm still organizing and,
You wouldn't be leaving a backhoe sit out there, something like that,
the backhoe was sitting outside a couple days, cause I was using it there,
okay.
but I had it in the shop.
It fits inside the building otherwise, okay.
Well, I would think there's gotta be some leniency on temporary, like having it
Yeah.
sit out there
Right,
temporarily
and
while.
that's what I mean, though, it's not gonna be permanently parked
Right,
out there
right.
for the,
It
12
probably
months
makes
of the winter,
some
that
money.
type of thing,
I would hope it's making him money.
yeah.
I mean, I have an ice castle sitting in my front yard right now.
nice castle.
Yeah,
Okay, let's
temporarily.
keep this thing moving along here.
All right,
I think we're probably ready for a motion, aren't we?
Mr. Chair,
No,
Yes,
Well, I think
Ma-
the
Mayor.
conditions.
one question, it says future equipment to be added, one semi-truck? Talking a tractor or,
Yeah, it'd be for moving equipment,
so tractor or tractor trailer?
it'd be a tractor trailer.
like with a flat bed or something.
Flatbed?
Well, like a low boy trailer.
Yeah, to haul a dozer.
Where would you keep that in the building then?
Yeah, once I able to, if I demo that other building, I'd build another building or add on to the one I got. And everything could stay inside. Right now, it's not a big concern for me. Usually I'm only moving the equipment so many times a year, so I hire out trucking to come move the big equipment. So, it's a future thing, not saying I'm gonna do it. Cause you go spend 200,000 on a truck and trailer, I only spend about 20,000 a year moving equipment, so you weigh it out, it's not really worth it. It's convenience is what it is, but not saying I'm gonna get it, but figured I'd list it.
Okay, I'm open for a motion then.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I think we should clarify a couple other things. I think we should add that if there is a semi-truck, well, A, we need to specify what's outside. If is there anything that you know of that you want outside that won't be behind the fence and that won't be in your building? Cause you're allowed to have two, personal items, let's say a boat or a, snowmobile trailer, okay? Two items can be out there that are unrelated to the business, but if there are any business items, we just wanna be sure we're covered and, they either have to be screened behind the fence or we have to specify.
I got a boat and I got a snowmobile trailer.
Okay, well, those are both residential items,
Yeah.
so, okay. And then, you will need a grading permit to work out there. Since there's no building permit involved right now, it's a separate grading permit. We wanna be sure that the grading you're doing, cause that was all graded simultaneously as part of the subdivision. We wanna be sure that what you're doing is not gonna negatively affect your neighbors or the regional,
Yes, I'm aware of that.
okay.
I don't think
Well-
it was done in the beginning though, is the problem.
Well, there was some problems, definitely, in the beginning there, but, we wanna be sure that it's done right. So if you would, just give me a call. Are you gonna do anything else this
No,
year yet?
no,
Okay. Well, maybe in the spring before you get back to it,
yeah.
let's just talk with the engineer a little bit. That would be great, thank you. So I don't know what you wanna say, if anything, about the semi-truck and dozer, if those,
that's something he wants in the future, we could have,
right, but as far as screening, I mean, if you wanna say if they don't fit in the building, they must be fully screened or
Yep.
something like
well,
that.
I think it should be.
So then he could either add trees later or, another fence or whatever. But I'll just, if that's okay, I'll just put if they don't fit in the building, they must be fully screened. Now, did you wanna specify any number of trees to be planted, or do you wanna just, how do you wanna handle the landscaping?
Give me an idea, how long is that overall, that large building? What's the length of it?
56.
Okay. And it's probably like then 36 wide,
Yep.
40?
36.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
Liz, so while they're debating or deliberating on the potential screening, the triangular piece, so I'm assuming that's not part of the 5.53 acres?
Right. That's correct.
And I would think since the neighbors are already looking at buildings that exist, the screening would probably have more to do with the truck traffic in and out. So rather than concentrating it along the side of the building, you probably want to be looking at the, especially, I think it's Anderson's, are you 19502?
Yes.
So probably their house, where their driveway looks directly onto where the truck activity would likely be in front of the buildings.
Right.
I would think that'd probably be the most
Yeah,
critical
that's
screening.
my thought up by the street on each, opposite the houses on, across the streets.
Yeah.
I guess there's,
And while, in the spring, sometimes you can get a good deal on some decent sized trees. I know that now the nursery certainly has some nice evergreens that can be had. And maybe in the business you come across that sometime. I would think a double row spaced for growth, so they don't encroach on each other, but something along that line there would give the Andersons a little more,
Are you saying by the road ditch?
yeah,
yeah.
along Easton there, Eaton there.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Barrow.
I guess through my kind of quick view on this, I was looking at somewhere between like 1.5 to 2 dozen trees just randomly just placed in places to kind of minimize some of the view of the construction equipment that could be parked and or coming and going to help with the neighbors' views a little bit. Do you have anything? I mean, they're.
I'm fine with planting trees. Like I said earlier, it's like, I do have equipment at my house right now, I'm trying to get the place ready and cleaned up to make it presentable. That's what I'm doing right now. It's like, if you drove by now, if you've seen it before, it looks 100 times different.
Are you gonna try to establish turf where the riding areas were outside, or do you think that'll just
I wanna make everything mowable with the lawnmower, so I can mow
Okay.
everything.
Okay.
It looks more clean than weeds. It's all weeds right now, and sand.
Yeah,
So I'd like to haul in a bunch of black dirt that I get off jobs, so I can have a nice lawn.
sure,
Everything,
okay.
it's kind of like a clayish, sandy mixture.
Yeah, yeah.
It's nothing great.
So generally, the interim use permit, you have up to a year to meet all the conditions? Is that enough time for you to plant trees, or would you like an extra season to try to get some trees in there?
I'd say a year would be fine.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, it's probably something you wanna do with this regrading is to
Yeah.
figure out where he wants to put them in at that time.
Just get it
Yeah,
done.
let's get it done. and over with.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll say, what, did I specify 6-foot cedar fence somewhere?
It was a minute.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah, I
got it called out,
did, yeah, I
yeah.
did, okay.
One thing, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
One thing I was thinking about the cedar fence, so to make, so I can hide everything, I'm gonna have to have like a big gate on it.
Uh-huh,
And so either that or, I don't know, drive around the back of the building and try to drive back around, where I'd have to make the driveway bigger.
oh, yeah, well, a gate's okay, if that works
That's-
for you.
That was
Or-
actually going to be my question.
Unless you wanna make it so you drive around the building and through or something, I don't know, but yeah, you'd need 2 gates in, so whatever works. But you're welcome to put a gate in if you want, or maybe it slides, I don't know.
I guess my question is, would you have to screen the fence the front side if you fence the back? To be just pulling in stuff off of the driveway to park it in between.
Oh, sure,
Or the building's hided enough with fence around the rest of it.
just fence the back side, which is kind of the southeast.
Well, and how long would that fence be there if you end up adding on to it anyways? I mean,
Yeah, you'd have to possibly move it, yeah.
She's saying, if you were adding to your buildings, would you continue to store things in the fenced area or inside?
Oh,
think she was
it'd be inside.
So you're saying you'd be investing in a fence, but eventually you're looking at putting it all inside anyway,
Yeah,
is that?
I'd like to keep everything inside, cause the sun wrecks everything. Hydraulic hoses on equipment.
Maybe-
nowadays
So maybe your
is cheap.
concentration is on expanding the building, indoor storage rather than spending a lot of money on the outdoor storage.
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
As far as like the 6-foot cedar fence goes, I mean, I don't know what everyone's thoughts are on, I mean, does it have to be cedar? Can it be that he decides to do like the vinyl? Does it I mean, that's my
We
question.
had talked about it.
Oh, he
That's-
wanted the cedar,
He was
okay.
okay with the cedar unless you had changed your mind.
Okay,
It doesn't matter to me, I think cedar would look the nicest out of all of it.
okay.
So
Okay,
that-
that's
Especially
awesome.
any solid fence that's
Yeah.
6 foot tall, yeah.
That's kind of where I was going with that, with like it
Yeah.
just being a solid fence. That would be eye appealing to the house itself, I guess, and its surroundings.
So is that acceptable to everyone, just to put it on the south side of between the buildings? And leave that north side open? If he's blocking the views of the people across the street with trees, I guess, it wouldn't be blocked as you're driving around the curve necessarily, but, from a static.
I guess that could be a question for him too, if he wants it closed for security as well. It might be the case, if he does want a fence in front. And gates.
That's a good point.
The mobility part, yeah. Okay. Alright.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
the other consideration is, we have the Andersons here, but I don't know who lives, I see a driveway to the north right across from Mr. Bisto's driveway. You're gonna see a view there. I don't know where that house is located exactly, but they'd be looking right between the buildings,
Straight
just to the west of the home there. So
That would be mine.
it'd be ours?
Oh, you live there, okay.
If he's between the buildings with his trucks, like he is right now, I don't really see him because of where my house is set versus his. It pretty much blocks my view between the buildings.
Okay.
I saw Sheldon's horse trailer more than I see his trucks between the buildings.
That's good to know. What's your last name, sir?
Ruprecht,
Oh, spell that one, please.
R-U-P-P-R-E-C-H-T.
Thank you.
Missed it by one P.
Everybody does.
That's just like it sounds. And then, I know that the deputy clerk read the letter from the Tollisons. Just to, I think most of those concerns have been addressed here, but as commissioners, just make sure you're considering that comment as well, so.
Another thing is like, it was brought up, like having a concrete crusher. You could never, you'd have to have a mining permit to have a crusher set up. There ain't gonna be any rubble haul to the place either.
Understand our experience has been that people in the concrete business do bring rubble home and extend into wetlands, and we've had some experiences, which is why we know.
That's how they
that
fill
those-
low areas, they just start bringing the excess home and dumping it.
That's how we
So
found
throw
out.
Throw a little dirt on top and call it good, there you go.
The MPCA is the one that educated us on that being a pollutant now. And we do have commercial businesses up here that are taking class 5 or concrete and asphalt to fill there. So we do have crushers in the city, so.
Okay.
It's a reasonable thing based on what people have seen. Probably not reasonable on 5.5 acres. But again, this is the time to address it, so.
So when
people know.
there's rubble like on the truck, it's in the truck overnight if the pit's closed and I come back home, then the next morning we just haul right to the gravel pit. So,
Sounds good.
Okay, are we ready to make a motion with all these additions?
So 6 AM to 9 PM, Monday through Friday, 6 AM. What's your preference is 5 PM okay Saturday then?
yes.
You want him to have a grading plan too, you say?
Yes.
Grading plan and also most of these buildings, most of these equipment in the building, and also we want trees planted. How many trees do we want? 10, 12,
No, minimum of 18,
18, minimum of
18 to 24 trees, minimum.
Well, I got one more question. So, for like a buffer for the noise, can I build a berm along that whole corner? Say like a 8-foot high berm out of dirt, then plant trees on top of that?
You mean around the curve? Are you gonna irrigate it, you think? Because sometimes they dry up unless it's a really big berm, I guess.
All depends on what type of soil they put in.
Well, I'll
If
tell you
put in
what.
Clay, then you have the berm wide enough.
Right,
So I
so,
done like in housing developments where I did some excavating, you put the berms in with the rolling hill,
okay.
plant trees on top.
Well, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think what you should do is when we're doing the grading plan, you can show those. And then we can, yeah, talk with the engineer about if that interferes with any overall
So
drainage.
that blocks sight and block noise.
I myself don't know that an 8-foot would look good in a residential neighborhood. And it's gonna take up a lot of space in your yard as well,
Yeah. so we'd have
to try to get that in there, yeah.
32 feet wide at the bottom, 6 to 8 feet in height.
Yeah. I would think maybe just, something that's maybe 3 or 4 feet is enough to just help
Yeah.
take care of headlights and that kind of stuff, and then put the trees on it. I would think the 8 feet would be kind of excessive, yeah.
Also including the screening in there, right? And was there anything else we wanted in there? And we're talking about screening on both sides, and you'd want to put security reasons too.
So 12 trees on each side, correct?
Well, she said up to 18, isn't that what you said?
18.
Minimum of 18,
Yeah,
Minimum of
18 is the minimum.
Yeah.
I don't know, if you just try to block the views across, from the houses across the way, I guess.
So like on the east side, it's not gonna do nothing because the elevation drops 8-9 feet. So,
Oh, does it?
so it's
They've
kind of,
already, they've already got
down
their own building
pointless there.
between
I see.
the building looks like between the house and him already, so.
In that case, maybe it'd be something that you put along the east of the driveway, east of your driveway or something, closer to the buildings.
There's already a willow tree there.
Yep, there's one willow tree on each side of your main driveway, correct?
I see that, okay.
Is there anything else we need to add there,
Oh, I see that, yeah.
along with Liz's recommendations?
I don't
Okay.
think so.
I'm open for a motion. I'll move it then, along with the recommendations we made here, the ones comments we just made it, and also with Liz's recommendation she's got listed here. Do we have a second to this motion?
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Skip? Cleat, second it. Do we have any further discussion? Quit laughing at me. Do we have any discussion? So we'll vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, I got a question right here to ask the mayor right now. Can we table the parking dedication thing, talking about it?
So Chuck, I'll let you know when the next meeting is.
Huh?
Yes, when it's.
I think I emailed that date to you, but it's the second Tuesday in December. Thank you for coming.
Okay, the next,
We might wanna show up the workshop before
Mr.
that.
Chair?
They have a workshop on the Thursday
Oh,
night
yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah, sorry. I think
Motion to table
That-
that.
Maybe you wanna show for that as well.
And then
that'd be
secondly,
actually better. You probably don't have to.
someone
go
make a
full.
motion to table the parking rec.
I'll make a motion to table the parking rec.
Anybody second it?
I'll second it.
Harold seconds it. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay?
What did you all do without me?
Yeah, we did it
Little
with,
bit.
we did it without you,
Dedication.
because we're running on time, we got some interviews right here.
Okay.
one other thing before you close the meeting, typically there hasn't been a P and Z meeting in December.
Do what?
P and Z meeting in December.
Oh, yeah, we got it.
Right now, that would be the day after Christmas.
Yep. Need to discuss that.
So we need to discuss that before you adjourn the meeting.
I'm trying to figure out what
Okay.
Skip.
Well, last year, the first time we ever had it.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is
Quitting.
we got two candidates here, it's, we're gonna interview, and if you come up and
Oh,
step
you
here,
got two.
close the mic. The two candidates are gonna be interviewed for the, move your chairs up closer so we can pick you up on mics. One of them, you could probably sit over there by close to Liz, and one sit over here.
Do you want me to move
Just so we can throw rocks at you, that's all.
Want me to move this out?
And then,
That would work
we're
too.
gonna have an arm wrestling contest here.
Yeah, mine can
Oh,
just sit
come here.
As long as it's not a race.
One sit right over there. We move his chair over for now. Okay, what we're gonna do here, I've got about 8 questions I'm gonna ask you.
You can ask them all?
I'll ask them all, and then you guys, have any more discussions,
I vote for 2.
or you wanna take, you want us to take turns going around asking the questions?
Well, or something that we would like to
You
know.
know, we'll be able to do that after this.
Oh, okay.
Some of the questions are a little redundant, so that's
Okay,
where.
I'll ask the first of all, I'll ask Al, and then you can, he can answer, and then you can answer the same question. We just go right around this way, and then when we get through these 8 here, then if we got any more questions that, come up here. A lot of the questions we have here came from the League of Minnesota Cities, developed a number of years ago by putting now into the questions, so it refers to Nowthen. And the first question is, Al, describe your specifically, by the way, before we go that, we need to introduce you. What was your name?
Jason Alders.
Alders?
Alders, ALDERS.
Alders, just like Alders, then Anoka.
Potentially, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's not the same, but,
Oh, okay.
No, his is with a D.
Oh, it's with Alders, okay. Okay. You can see where all of our names are.
yep.
So, okay, go back to Al here. Describe specifically how your present job and education experience would contribute to being on the planning and zoning committee.
He's retired, so.
He's retired, but his jobs that you had.
What job
Well, just describe specifically how your present jobs and your education and experience would contribute to being on the planning and zoning committee.
Number one, as I had on my application, I was raised by a mayor. She became mayor because of a boondoggle on planning and zoning. And she ended up being appointed mayor. The thing that she protested and fought was taken all the way to the Supreme Court. And they agreed with her, with the city on that. That was my startup on planning and zoning. And Ma always told me, get involved with your government, local government. Washington DC isn't the one that makes the wheels turn. It's the small towns, small cities, local government. And I think I've had some experience with the school district too. I negotiated contracts from 2000 for the Teachers Federation from 2000 to 2005. That gave me quite an education in government. I've been on road and bridge here, that's been a little education. And it sounds like I got a lot more education coming up here, don't I, Jeff?
Mm-hmm. For the commission's background, Al does serve as chairman of the Road and Bridge. He's on the Park and Rec Committee. He's been appointed to the Watershed. So this would, the trifecta would go up to 4 now. So.
I'm on Park and Rec, like you said, Park and Rec, and on the Watershed Commission.
He's one of the few people that actually attends our meetings anymore. Not that we're online, so.
I've always enjoyed working with people. I started 3 different companies, sold 2 of them. I'm still active in one. I like to keep busy. It keeps your brain active. And I'm deeply interested in planning and zoning. Like I say, I was raised on it. And I like working with Jeff. And
Okay,
yeah.
okay, Jason? Let me read the question again, Sria. Describe specifically how your present job education experience would contribute to being on the planning and zoning committee.
So I have a bachelor's degree in engineering, is kind of formally what, from an education standpoint. I went to the Milwaukee School of Engineering. I started at Caterpillar down in Brooklyn Park about 22 years ago as an engineer. Had various jobs. I'm currently the facility manager of that plant, so there's about 500 hourly employees that work as part of my team. It's a 3-shift operation. We do heavy assembly of equipment and fabrication, and then there's a material handling aspect of that as well. It's about a $40 million variable cost budget. It's about a $22 million period cost budget that our team's accountable for. Ironically enough, Andy is part of the team that was here earlier. He's in my group. So I think from education experience, I've run a facility. I have a ton of people that work as part of the team, and I think that would help with some of the issues from Nowthen. I'm also on the foundation board for the Anoka Technical College. I'm the vice president of that group. That group is specifically funding and handing out scholarships to kids that go through they get into the technical school there. So that's another aspect that I enjoy doing.
Okay, thank you. I will go back to Al, the second question. Briefly describe the 3 most important personal qualities you believe are necessary for being on the planning and zoning.
I've always been an organizer. I've always brought up ideas. I'm always a thinker. And I like to save money. And I like to look at the fine points. You can make a lot of mistakes in this planning and zoning that can get you in trouble if you don't check into things really deep.